I had a nightmare once. Way back. The year is 2001. I'm sitting on a block pattern rug in daycare with my fellow classmates watching Blue's Clues. But for some reason, there was nothing happening. Like the plot was not developed for this episode. And on the screen is Steve, just watching us. The room was a tannish yellow, very well lit, everyone's belongings bright and colorful. Some children in the room were playing amongst one another, while others' full attention was directed towards the screen, as if they were in a trance. A few moments pass and I'm called into another room by my teacher. As we are talking, I suddenly hear a zapping noise. I walk back into the room and I see piles of ash. Everyone panicked. Steve vaporizes anyone and everyone he can. Some of us make it into the back room, hiding under a bed frame. The zapping noise gets louder and closer. And I lay there waiting, watching the door.
Oh, hi. You're here.
My younger self had a hard time containing emotions. When I was really happy, I was ecstatic. When I was sad, I was heartbroken. But when I was scared, I was engulfed in terror. A very powerful state of being can quickly change the atmosphere. I hated going upstairs alone when everyone else was on the bottom floor. I loathed my mother every time she asked me to grab something for her on the fourth floor, when no lights were on and there was no sound. I would make noise, sing, turn on the lights, and always look back to make sure nothing had appeared behind me. I never slept facing away from the door, because if something was going to sneak up on me, I'd rather see it before I met my untimely demise. Being exposed to scary movies and bad dreams can do this to anyone at a young age. Growing up, our perception of what frightens us will change. For some, it's hard to find a movie that induces terror. For others, reading horror books aren't frightening at all. But video games are a bit different. I don't like playing horror games, but I still play them, especially if I hear something good about it. It could be the scariest piece of downloadable content on the planet, and I'd give it a try knowing what I'm getting myself into. It isn't real, yet for some reason, we are in a constant turmoil of distress and anxiety. The anticipation and buildup of knowing that something is coming with ill intent shakes your equilibrium. When playing games, stumbling upon a threat that will cost you your life or inflict pain is pretty much impossible. Completing a challenge would not be the same without the risk of starting over or taking damage, but it does not warrant the stress response of standing on the edge of a skyscraper. So, why are we still afraid when playing horror games? Before discussing video games, it is important to understand why people experience fear in the first place. Fear is a response, as part of human and animal design, to prevent dangerous situations from either occurring or beginning. In other words, it aids in the survival of a species. Without it, avoiding danger would be extremely difficult, making everyone more susceptible to death and injury. To put it simply, people experience fear from the thought or act of loss and pain. Now, how would it be used in video games? First, let's break down fear into two concepts: true fear and false fear. True fear being the life-threatening situations such as close calling, a car accident, or running from a rabid dog, while on the other hand, false fear are the illusions created by the mind that don't actually pose an immediate threat to well-being. An example might be fear of becoming unemployed or thinking about developing an incurable sickness, or in this case, playing a horror game.
Не делайте это сложным для себя.
True fear is absent in video games because the player consciously knows they aren't putting their life on the line, which is why developers must rely on false fear to fill the horror aspects of their games. And here's how they do it. A main ingredient of false fear is the unknown, a lack of understanding, not knowing whether something awaits you around the corner or in a closet. Having no clue what this mysterious construct formed by thoughts is or isn't, all produced by the mind. It's in your head and has made its way into your reality. The mind has a habit of formulating theories about the unknown, constantly shifting between whether or not something is or isn't a threat, how much pain it can cause, if any at all, and will the death be instant or will I have to suffer? Fabrications leading back to the inner workings of the mind. Here's an example. The ocean. In an alternate reality, humans can breathe underwater and pressure is not an issue for our bodies to withstand. Do you think people would be willing to explore all the way down to the ocean floor? Possibly. I once heard someone say that things down there in the deep will give you nightmares from just seeing them. The darkness makes it that much more mystical, forever lurking in the unknown. And the one thing that makes the unknown stronger is anticipation. Anticipation is used to amplify fear, build up sounds. The use of music and atmosphere can either work individually or in unison, providing a more potent scare. Although the absence of anticipation can induce a quick shock, it wouldn't have the same effect. But doesn't anticipation sort of ruin a scare? In some cases, no. Playing with the unknown and adverting the expectations can make the scare more effective if done right. Not only is the audience worried about when the climax will occur, but how and what will be shown or heard. With video games, the fear feels a lot more real. The main difference between games and other mediums is being given the control of choice. Having control over some aspects of the game provides a false sense of security. The player is reminded they are at the mercy of whatever inhabits the game with each passing moment. Ultimately, creating false fear is a main driving force of every single horror game. In a way, horror games are the most creative, not because of the development of the project as a whole, but because of the player. A strong imagination equates to a powerful sense of fear.